We talked a bit earlier about the definition, which is at the root of all of this, really. I mean, the way that guidelines are applied, that's one thing. But the actual definition that you've already referred to of hate incident or a hate crime is this thing where there's all sorts of problems wrong with it, are there not? Yeah. First of all, victim is used immediately. The word victim, as you said, you should at least be just a complainant, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
But a victim, it's already there. It's already kind of like loaded.
Yeah, it's all very loaded. Yeah.
But it's in the perception of the victim that there is hostility,
or any third party.
Anybody else, or anybody else. Now that means, in legal terms, anybody.
Yeah.
Someone watching this now can decide that this is some form of hate incident or something.
Exactly.
And they can report it. And that would be then on the statistics, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be on the statistics. Yeah. In fact, you talk about irony. Mrs. B, who is the complainant in my case, published a statement anonymously 2 days ago in which they accused the judge of a hate incident.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you see, by their own logic, I guess, by their own skewed logic, I guess you can see it, can't you?
It is, because the guidance says there is mandatory recording. Yeah. Elsewhere, it says use common sense, but elsewhere, it says mandatory recording. So, which is it? Is it common sense or is it mandatory? Because it can't be both. Words mean something, and mandatory means mandatory. That's what it says. And also the definition of hate. If you look at the definition of hate, it includes a dislike of.
That's right. This is in the CPS sort of definition, isn't it? Which hostility can mean, as you say, just simple dislike. Yeah. What does that mean?
I've no idea, but one of the things it does mean is this, that Momentum is a hate group.
Yes.
Because the Momentum make no apology at all for hating on Tories. So why is that not a hate? Why is that not? Why are they not a hate group?
You said before we started recording that this was a kind of, like a form of psychosis that we're grouped with. I mean, it does seem to me to be that there's a kind of madness going on, isn't there?
Well, Douglas Murray writes about it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He talks about the madness of crowds, and that's exactly what we've got here. We've got a form of utter madness where black is white, up is down, right is wrong. Everything is evidence can be no evidence.
Yeah.
How can? That's what the guidance says. No evidence of the hate element is required for a hate incident or a hate crime. How can that be? How can there be? How can it say no evidence is required? That's just nonsense. It's a heckler's charter. It's a lunatic's charter, quite frankly. And Mrs. B, in my case, the judge was kind by saying that they were operating on the outer edges of rationality. I'd say they were just plain flipping nuts. And, nutters are gonna nutter. But what is really worrying is that the police thought it was a good idea to use the testimony of a raging lunatic.
That's because they've been on a course.
Yeah, exactly. But you read through the official victim statement, the evidence that Humberside presented, and it says Harry Miller is a bigot. And it rants and it says. That I'm in a conspiracy with James Kirkup of The Spectator and Joni Walsh from The Telegraph. I'm running a hate group with them. And then it says quite bizarrely that 80 years ago I would have been persecuting the Jews. 40 years ago I would have been persecuting the blacks. 30 years ago I would have been persecuting homosexuals. Well, one, I wasn't alive 80 years ago. It may come as a surprise to you. And 30 years ago, I was living with 2 homosexuals, and I don't recall persecuting either of them. So it's just patent nonsense. And what is worrying is the police, with an entirely straight face, presented this as evidence. Now, there is what is known in Radfem circles and free speech circles as the Mr. Justice Knowles eye roll. Now, my understanding is that High Court judges aren't supposed to roll their eyes, but the provocation in this instance was such that even he, with his steely, judgy self, could not but help himself, and his eyes almost rolled into eternity at that.
What was the reaction? What has the reaction been on the whole, Harry, of the media to your case? I know that we've got the press on the one hand, but say the broadcast media, people who've had your, are they broadly sympathetic, or have you found yourself being exasperated by it?
I've been exasperated. I was exasperated by my local BBC, who you go and give an interview to them, and then they cut the interview right down, so you're basically saying very little, and then they would have a local trans person on who would be going on about how jokes can be so cruel. I don't recall writing it. I'm thinking, I didn't do any jokes. I was part of a discussion, but hey, that's local news for you. But then the press by and large has been incredibly sympathetic. Last week I was on PM. I think I was the top story on PM straight after the judgment. And what stunned me is that the interviewer, I can't remember his name, all he wanted to talk about was why I wasn't more kind, why I wasn't kinder. Right? The story is not about kindness here. The story is about a police force that's been called the Gestapo, the Stasi, and the Cheka. And you want to talk about why can't we all be kind? That's why I say there's a collective madness.
Yes.
There is a collective madness, and the BBC, in certain instances, are part and parcel of that madness.
Oh, without question. What has been the kind of effect of this on you? I mean, have you had, has it been sort of like a few long, dark, nights, as it were, of the soul? Or?
You talk about a long night of the soul. I did. I had one very long, dark night of the soul, which was in October, and it occurred when the witness statements from Humberside came in. Up until that point, I knew I was in a fight of a little man, me, against a very large organisation, Humberside, and then an even larger organisation, the College of Policing. But still, in my naivety, I thought that we were fighting fairly. Okay, it was a flyweight against a heavyweight, but still, we were going to be fighting fairly. Then I read the statements, and my heart dropped out my arse, the truth be told, because they lied. Just plain, straightforward lie. Lie number one was that PC Gull's statement said, I did not say I need to check your thinking. Well, he did. He did. Absolutely he did. Strike me down, strike my family down. He said it. We had a full discussion about 1984. No doubt about it. Second lie. He didn't say about fetuses growing the wrong body parts, and that's what being trans is. Again, 100% lie. Absolute lie. Third lie was that it was a phone call which lasted no more than 20 minutes. Except I rang him, remember, and it was a 34-minute phone call. So another lie, verifiable lie. But even if it was only a 20-minute phone call, what he said in that phone call wouldn't last 2 minutes, let alone 20. What else did we discuss? Did we discuss the football? Did we plan a family holiday together? Did we ask about each other's kids? What did we talk about for 20 minutes? Even if your 20 minutes was right, you can't fill it. My account, you can fill all 34 and some. So at that point, I realised, oh my God, not only are they heavyweights, but they've got a knife down the trouser pocket and a horseshoe in the glove. And I was very nearly broken. Very, very nearly broken.
Well, it sort of shakes one's whole confidence in, what we've grown up believing in a way about our institutions, doesn't it?
Well, like I said to you earlier, I don't look good in a tinfoil hat. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I will back the police absolutely 100% to the hilt. I think by and large police officers are good. I think our police force is good. I am absolutely prime pro police, and to see absolute lies being presented for the High Court stunned me. I had a very near breakdown. It was October. I just lost it. I took my car to the Humber Bridge. I got out of my car and I started walking across the Humber Bridge, and I looked over and thought, God, that would be tempting. Just stop it all now. I don't think I think it would be wrong to say that I was on the point of jumping, but I knew I was in a really bad place. So what I did was I just kept walking. I decided, my rational brain said, just keep walking, get as far away from that bridge as is possible. And I walked and I walked and I walked. I was wearing a pair of gardening shoes and an old jumper and a gilet. And I walked and walked, and I was still walking at 12:30 at night. I'd walked 30 miles, and eventually I got picked up by my wife. Found me, and the police found me, and I was frozen solid. Absolutely frozen solid, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just out of it. My wife took me home. I eventually got warm, and then I woke up the following morning, and my wife said, "Do you want to give up?" And I said, "We can't, can we, Doc? We just can't." And she said, "You're right, we can't give up. We've come this far, we've got to keep going." And we did. But you talk about the long night of the soul. That was a long night. That was a really long night, because I'm a tough guy. Right? I'm a tough fella. But the police and the Humberside Police and the College of Policing and Humberside lying, straightforward lying, it absolutely ripped my world apart. It really, really did. I was not expecting that.
When you stood outside the High Court last week, I hope you had a different feeling.
I loved it. Yeah, it was a superb feeling, because there was the personal vindication, of course, which is good for my family, because you don't want a family member to be associated with hate and this, that, and the other, even if they know there's nothing in it. It's really nice to have a High Court judge authenticate that. But more, I think, for my organisation, Fair Cop, the support I've had from the Fair Cop members, which includes serving police officers and a whole bunch of really, really good people who've got to remain anonymous, obviously.
And the public, presumably.
And for the public, yeah, because I knew that this was a watershed moment, and I knew that the language that Mr. Justice Knowles had used was going to send shockwaves through absolutely everything. I mean, to have a High Court judge say what he said, the judgment is 65 pages long. There are something like 290 paragraphs in it. The paragraph he chose, I think it's paragraph 279. That's the bit that he read out. Right. Gestapo, Stasi, Checker. I'm like, get in there, Justice Knowles.
And this is the first case of its kind, isn't it? I mean, this is a landmark.
Absolutely landmark case, yeah. You say it, and even now saying it, I'm thinking, I'm looking at myself thinking, how did I end up here? My life is about walking the dogs and doing a bit with the business and playing Candy Crush and watching Netflix. It's not about changing the world, but that's what we're doing.
Well, Harry, thank you so much for telling us chapter and verse on that. I mean, I think it's a remarkable story, and congratulations, and also all the very best for what you do next.
Absolutely. We've got a lot going on. We've got the Supreme Court. And the little teaser, this story with Humberside might not be over yet.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Harry. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, won't you? And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.